mo.
Are you ready?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all. Mabuhay from Baliuag University, Philippines. Welcome to the Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. And as we all know, the holiday season is really around the corner. So from the Philippines, let me greet everyone a maligayang Pasko or Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all. I am Hasmin Tayao, the Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs of Baliuag University, Philippines, your moderator. How about ending the year right with the second session of this webinar series? This webinar series, which will be conducted every third Friday of the month from November 2021 to April 2022, is brought to us by Baliuag University in cooperation with University College of Estate Management, Global Sustainable Futures Network, the OPEDUCA Project, and Maastricht University. Well, last November 19th, we started this series with an insightful, comprehensive, and data-driven introduction to sustainability. Such a very good start to ignite our passion and increase our level of awareness and action about sustainable future. For our webinar guidelines, kindly use your complete name and your institution or affiliation as your Zoom account name. Please keep yourself on mute. Well, if you have a question, you may type it in the chat room and share your ideas. Allow me to share some gentle reminders about your participation to this webinar series.
Na kami ni Ma'am B kasi ang aming alumni ay nasa
Shaping Sustainable Future.
Hindi dapat kay Sir.
Okay, so Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series is comprised of 6 online events or short workshop events. Second, the 6 online events will take place on the third Friday of every month from November 2021 to April 2022. At the end of the 6 online events, each participant will receive Certificate of Participation in Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. Evaluation of the activity will be done before ending the program. Well, it is such a delight to see all of us, all the participants from various countries, from different sectors for a shared purpose. That is, we are here, we're coming together for a sustainable future. At this moment, to formally welcome us all to this virtual engagement, let us have the President of Baliuag University, Philippines, our very own, Dr. Patricia Bustos-Lagunda. Dr. Lagunda.
Thank you, Dr. Tayao. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and the administration of Baliuag University, Philippines, let me extend my warm virtual welcome to all to this Shaping for Sustainable Futures Together seminar series. Also, I'd like to welcome back those who have joined us in the first seminar during the start of the 6th series, and that was last November 19. And to those who have just joined now, we hope that you will be with us in the remaining 4 webinars. I have a sense that people are on holiday mode already, so maybe we'll have more when January kicks in. This online series is a brilliant idea of our cooperation with the University College of Estate Management, Global Sustainable Futures Network, the Open Duca Project, and Maastricht University, as earlier mentioned. As we have already kicked off this webinar series, we have started to further our knowledge, awareness, and level of action on our respective roles to promote sustainability from various societal sectors involving scholars, university students, school leaders, government, policy developers, managers from mid-scale and larger industry, as well as NGOs. And we hope to have more of them come January and then up to April. Our delivery team, Baliuag University's visiting fellows for global sustainability, will provide our participants with action-based perspective, envisioning the empowerment of participants to take an active role in shaping a sustainable future. Specifically on topics of our webinars, we started with Introduction to Sustainability. Today is systems thinking and problem analysis, the meaning and impact of the SGDs, that's the third, followed by sustainability leadership, then global sustainability and corporate social responsibility, and last would be leading sustainable transformation. The pillars of sustainability, and this is made up of human, social, economic, and environmental factors, need our deliberate efforts of action in order to meet our present needs without compromising the ability of the next and future generations. With this, I enjoin everyone to complete the series until April. As mentioned earlier, every third Friday of the month, please devote 2 hours of your time to learn and pick up the best practices in sustainability. In closing, I wish all of us a productive and meaningful webinar on systems thinking and problem analysis. I am delighted that you have chosen to spend today an afternoon with Dr. Renuka Thakore, Dr. Jos Eussen, and Mr. Khoo, Hock on, and together with them, as we learn from them, let's work towards a sustainable future. Thank you very much and stay safe, everyone. And of course, Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. Back to you, Yasmin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lagunda. Indeed, all of us are looking forward to completing the remaining webinars and, of course, become agents of sustainable future. At this juncture, let me give the virtual floor to Dr. Francia R. Santos, Country Coordinator of Global Sustainable Futures, to introduce the Baliuag University Visiting Fellows for Global Sustainability, are the members of the delivery team. Dr. Franz?
Thank you so much, Dr. Jasmine Tayao. So I would like to thank also our president, Baliuag University President, Dr. Patricia Lagunda. She is also the Global Sustainability Network Coordinator. So she's a recipient also of the Gold Certificate of Appreciation from GSFN. Okay, so our first member of the delivery team is actually the team lead of this Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. So she's providing a collaborative platform for innovative and transdisciplinary partnership and capacity development for the early career researchers joined by senior experienced researchers from the Global South and the Global North. So Dr. Thakore believes in the broader sustainable development concept, and she's using multidimensional lens. She's also, the founder of the Global Sustainable Futures, and she's proud to have more than 1,000 coordinators from more than 100 countries worldwide. So let's all welcome Dr. Renuka Thakore. So let's give her a round of applause. Okay, the next member of the team. So I'm so honored to introduce to you also the second member of the team. He's coming from a 20 years career in private industry. He is an economist. He became a CFO and CEO, and he is also a social entrepreneur leading the RCE Rhine Muse. He is the first of 174 regions worldwide, binding together the knowledge and action of the industry. So Dr. Jos Eussen is also the founder of the Opeduca project, which is also a partner of this sustainable series. Okay, so let's all welcome now the lecturer of Sustainable Development and Climate Change from Maastricht University. So once again, let's welcome Dr. Jos Eussen. And then the last but not the least member of the delivery team is the one providing sustainability related advisory services for agriculture, forestry project development. He has been involved, okay, in managing also environmental management. He is also an expert in agriculture. So let us all welcome the convener for Global Sustainability Summits and Dialogues, Global and ASEAN Green Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Khoo Hock. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Francia. As what the theoretical physicist Albert Einstein says, problems cannot be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. With this, let us all learn together with this second webinar of our Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series entitled Systems Thinking and Problem Analysis. May I now give the spotlight to the members of the delivery team. For the information of our group, they will entertain your questions during the open forum of our program. Dr. Thakore,
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen properly?
yes, we can see your screen
Good,
properly
thank you.
and we can hear you clearly as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. Extremely pleased to be here and grateful to Baliuag organizing team, Dr. Patricia Lagunda, my dear friend and network coordinators, Dr. Francia Santos, Khoo, Hock, and Professor Jos Eussen, who is also part of our delivery team. So I'm very grateful for organizing this seminar at Baliuag University and led by Rina Flor Castro. So here today, we are going to spend some time discussing what is systems thinking. And I will be mainly talking about the theoretical framework. And then it will be led by Jos for you to think into why it is important or how you can manage it or how you can look through it. And then following that, we will have Khoo, who will give you some practical applications in how it is in real world. So I'm very thankful and I acknowledge the support of University College of Extension Management, Baliuag University, the Opeduca project and Maastricht University, and especially I'm very proud of being here from my network, Global Sustainable Futures Progressive Partnership. So today is the workshop 2, Systems Thinking and Problem Solving. As I already mentioned, we will drill into the concept of systems thinking today, and we will try to understand its applicability for problem solving or problem analysis, I might go, if our time permits, we can go into methods and approaches for system thinking, and then I will hand over it to Dr. Josh. So here first I want to start with, what do you understand by the idea of systems? And what are the basic principles of systems thinking? Could you please write down in the chat for 5 minutes? And if anyone really wants to speak, then they can take the mic and also speak. So I would like you to write down in the chat, and I will be looking at your answers. Please, what do you understand by the idea of system? And so I will write down 2 questions here. Okay. We haven't got many answers. Come on. Okay, we have got one answer here. System is consolidated with elements and functions. And he is absolutely right. He's Sri Ramnath Mandali, and he's absolutely right. Okay, we are getting now some few answers. Very good. Okay, someone has said, Bella has said, a holistic approach to analysis that focuses on the way that a system's constitute parts, interrelate, and how systems work over time and within the context of larger system. Perfect. System thinking means holistic thinking of systems, its underlying interlinkages with interconnected aspects. Brilliant. System thinking is a way to understand a subject with the help of system. Good. Defined processes, interrelationship, awareness of impact on the other parts of the organization. Perfect. Interconnection of factors, structures, functions. Yes. An ideal problem-solving framework for sustainability. Ideal. Okay, very good. Systems thinking, structured ways and processes of achieving shared goals. Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. System thinking giving us perspective that most of the time various components affect each other in various ways. Yes, I like this. Yeah, okay, I will stop here now because exactly these are the answers what I was looking for. And exactly, we all have these impression or understanding of systems thinking. And I'm going to mainly speak the same words here, but we will also have to think how we apply them, or how do we really think always of our problems through systems thinking. And so here, let me go ahead and thank you for your input. So the idea of system is not modern concept actually. It has origin from 17th century. In literature, I am talking. Actually, in our culture and these, like in our behavior and culture, embedded in our decisions. And it is from many years ago. Like it is since our existence probably. But it has become more evolved and more complex. But since then, now I'm talking about literature here, that since 17th century, it has been discussed almost in all the disciplines. And that is in physics, in biology, in chemistry, and eventually it is also used in explanation of now, ecology, engineering, economics, anthropology, geography, sociology, cybernetics, and so on. So now it is very common to apply this systems thinking in almost all disciplines. And so it is now coined as a meta-discipline or a meta-language by Chuckland and Scholes in 1999. Using the ideas of systems, this Chuckland made some very seminal work on systems thinking since 1981, and he has plenty of papers around it, and he has developed the literature around it. And according to him, systems thinking is about consciously organizing thinking process. And it is also a critical thinking, which Josh will touch on. Critical thinking or decision making, thinking about all your alternatives and how we should go forward. So here in this slide, you can see the map. And you might be, whenever you are talking about any problem, you will be thinking about what is the context, what have we found out, what to do next, or what was the purpose of the system, or what happens in here in this system, how we can analyze that, and how we can understand each part of the system and its influence on each other. So this is what we are talking here. So according to GLAC 2000, systems thinking is a worldview which allows appreciation of holistic thinking, having interconnection between the elements. So whenever it is a part of anything, a system, so for example, it is a car is also on its own one system. And when we are talking about car, and if we are talking about a steering or any one part of the car, then we can say that that is one element of that system. And when it is also called components. So system and components, generally they are used it can be used anytime, and they are interchanged. You can see this in this background again, the same slide, and you may think that these are the internal structure and how they are dependent on each other. That is the main importance of this system thinking, that we have to understand their dependence on each other. And importantly, what is important in this system thinking, that these elements are just not only non-human elements. They are human elements and non-human elements. And therefore, we previously, when someone said that it is a function and the process. So whatever the function, process, and also it relates on your behavior, your decision making. So you can think that it involves human and non-human components. And this they are established in a wider and linked processes. So any human does the decision, and that non-human element functions or does the process. And these and therefore we can think that there are technologies which are non-human components. So that is a technical part, and the social part, which is human component. And they are the users of that system. And therefore you must be always thinking about all these relationships and all these components and elements within a system when you are talking about a system, or when we are trying to analyze a system and solve a problem through this system thinking. So now these system components contribute to a properties called drivers, outcomes, and feedback. And it is applied to the problems of multiple disciplines. So mainly there are, we can analyze a system by thinking that, okay, this is the driver of the system, then this will be the outcome. And when there is an outcome, we may not get the desired outcome, and we will find that something needs to be feedback to the system. So there is an iterative loop around this always in a systems thinking. So now I will speak about 5 basic principles of systems thinking. They are generally very embedded within our decision making, but we must be conscious, we must be knowing these principles so that we can deliberately apply them in systems thinking. And so first is the big picture principle. And big picture principle demands you to widen your perspective and find more effective solution. Even in the stressful time, one must not be focusing on the immediate answer or immediate response. Yes, we must be taking some immediate response, but we must be thinking about the long-term response, long-term its consequences, so that we can deal with its adverse impact if the immediate response has any adverse impact. So we must be looking at a very big picture here and investigate any problem in an effective solution, for an effective solution. The second principle is long-term, short-term principle. And this again relates with the earlier point which I made, that yes, we need to have some short-term solution, but we must always think about the medium and the long-term solution so that we do not fall into the fall of any adverse effect of the short-term solution. And if we are thinking about the long term, then even if we have done something wrong in a short term, we must evaluate, go back and see whether we have done it properly. And so if there is any adverse effect, we can immediately address it without going into further adverse effect. The third principle is dynamic, complex, and interdependent principle. And therefore, we must avoid simplification. Yes, just do it. Yeah, when we thought about delivering this series, we had to go through series of conversation, dialogues, discussion, how we will deliver, where we should be deliver, how we will manage them, and what will be the consequences of it, and what will be the outcome of this, and how will it impact the wider society, and so on. So that is, we have to think about all these things, and they are all interrelated. How you deliver, how you design your delivery, that is more important than what the outcomes come out. And therefore, from the start of your thinking, you have to keep a wider vision, big picture, long-term perspective, and the dynamic nature of this system thinking. And also within though we might be sometimes also thinking about that, okay, there are interdependence between the components within the system, but also the components are interacting to the outer environment, and therefore we must be thinking about their impacts in the outer environment, external environment, that is called of external environment to your system. The fourth one here, the measurable versus non-measurable data principle. And here, this is very important because mainly or traditionally our policies have been developed by quantitative analysis, showing that, okay, if we do this, then this is going to happen. So for example, we have always thought about return on investment, or if we invest this much, then we will get the returns this much in a positive form anywhere. However, we must be talking about the non-measurable data, that is the quality and more attitudinal, moral. This all should also come into our thinking. So we must match our qualitative and quantitative data for any decisions. And finally, the fifth point is we are part of the system. Remember, we are wherever, in whichever the system we are, even if it is like a car, we are the part of that system. Okay, and we have to decide, because we are the decision maker, we are the designer, and we are the decision maker. So we have to, it all depends on what we decide, how we decide, and how we deliver. And therefore, we must be more focused on thinking of known unintentional consequences, that whatever we have decided and what we have implementing for the outcome must be that only and not the unintended outcome. And so we must be very worried about the unintended outcomes when we are taking the decision and dealing with this systems thinking. And sometimes these unintentional outcomes are also kind of mental assumptions and values and beliefs, and they have an adverse impact. So generally, system thinking is uniquely based nowadays because of this all literature and awareness of system thinking. It is now generally discussed as a complex systemic issue and used as a language to discuss or to analyze a problem. Okay, and it is again, when we are talking about the language, every professional or people in different disciplines use different language, different terminology. And sometimes if we are talking about very rigid language of system thinking, then people might not get it. And therefore, there are several different synonyms used, and you may not be aware or conscious that you are applying some system thinking in your thinking, but you are definitely doing so. So for example, today you have come to attend this seminar, then you must have thought about how I'm going to attend, what I'm going to move, because you have to make some time for this series and so on. So in our conscious mind, like we are definitely thinking of system thinking, but here I'm talking about deliberately applying these principles so that we can analyze worldwide, real world problems to have better solutions. And so now I stop here again for the second discussion point, which is applicability of systems thinking for problem analysis. So the question here is how system thinking can be used for sustainability, or could you think of various systems commonly used in environment or societal contexts, and how system thinking can be applied? I will write down these two questions in the chat, and you are welcome to write in the chat, or you can also write down in take the mic and speak if you want.
Okay, so probably you can have some answers to the questions or the challenge of Dr. Thakore regarding her question, depending on our respective areas or respective disciplines. As to, let me just repeat the question. How systems thinking can be used for sustainability Can we think of various systems commonly used in environmental or societal context and how systems thinking can be applied? Dr. Thakore, so there's an answer already from Sir Kelkar and Sir Mandali. Would you like me to read their answers for you?
Yeah, yes, carry on. You can read.
Yeah, okay. So for Sir Kelkar, we can solve the sustainability issues with integrating the various parts of the environmental issues and try to find the relationship. From
Yes.
Sir yeah, Sir Dr. Thakore.
Yeah, I can read now. Don't worry.
Okay,
uh,
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we can solve the sustainability issues by integrating the various parts of the environmental issues and try to find the relationship. Secondly, we have seen we can solve energy related problems like sun radiation versus solar cell emittance, light flux, and reduced CO2 emissions. Exactly. So here, these both examples show that the environmental issues in the sense of our light, energy, where the energy is source, so source of energy, the use of energy, and due to the use and source of the energy, the impact of the energy use that is on the environment, whether we are doing any pollution or how we are using the energy, and how we are due to our use of energy, how we are using the natural resources, and so on. And so these are two really good examples of showing the interrelationship of many parts of our environment in our real world. And therefore, to understand these all interactions, we must be applying systems thinking. Here, someone has said system thinking can be utilized in bettering the operational aspects by better renewed approaches. Exactly. Secondly, in organization, systems consist of people, structure, and processes that work together to make an organization healthy or unhealthy. Brilliant. Reuse, recycle, refurbished, regenerate are some of the examples of circular economy. Exactly. So here we are, the system thinking makes us think about what are the impacts, mainly its impacts, and therefore whether those impacts are positive or negative on any other part of the system. And if it is something like that, then we must be resolving it. Here we have more answers now. System thinking is a powerful tool that helps us better navigate the complexity and dedicate balance and the socio-political and natural ecosystem within which our business operates. In order for any business to become resilient, to withstand the shocks and stress in their value chain, they must apply a systemic perspective. Applying a system thinking approach to sustainability enables us to better see and understand the impacts of our business decision and avoid unintended consequences. It also enables us to explore opportunities for innovation and design our approaches for system change. Be it incremental changes or broader changes, we want to find a practical way for us to be responsible for the impact of our work has a people on the planet, on people and planet. Brilliant. I think she's reading my PhD there. It can help us in formulating problems that are supportive from each other. Human person is considered as important resources for balanced and integrated development. Okay. It can be used also to solve climate change and other environmental issues associated with climate change. This can help how people can help solve climate change in both micro and micro level. Brilliant, because I'm going to touch on this exactly. Okay, so I think we have one more, sorry. Oh, wait a second. Yeah. Yes, so I asked Annie's mentioned Leonardo da Vinci, and I asked, give an example. So he became famous because of his painting. He was a Renaissance man, mathematician, geologist, analyst, biologist, and sought to learn every possible source, and was manifested by the interconnection of found, learn to see, and urge, realize that everything connects to everything else. And the Vitruvian's man is a systems thinking example, more than an illustration of human proportions. It is the synthesis of anatomical, geological, and geometrical, religious, and philosophical studies, and the way greater than the sum of its part. Okay, here I would think that yes, absolutely, as a system thinker, he might have found the interconnections of many disciplines, but what I believe in his own personality, that he was a transdisciplinary person, in the sense of he used to use several disciplines and come to a new level of understanding, which is called transdisciplinary. And I'm also going to touch on that. So thank you very much for putting the, preparing the platform for my further slides. Thank you very much. So here, I will share now. Before going into details of these applications, we must also need to understand that why we need to think differently. Why what we are thinking just traditionally and the way we are behaving is not really impactful or beneficial for our sustainable development. So, and here I again mentioned that concept sustainable development, and I would like to remind you that last workshop was focused on sustainable development. And so if you do not know what is sustainable development, then you can go into our first workshop series and listen to the recording. And if you are new to, or first time attending this series, then you may ask the organizer, then they can send you the recording of the first workshop. And there you will find the understanding of sustainable development. And therefore, taking the broader sustainable development, we must also focus on the 17 sustainable development goals, which targets on zero poverty, reducing inequality, and so on. And therefore, we need this understanding of systems thinking. Now, traditionally, societal system, you know what we have food system, transport system, housing system, educational system, and they are relatively close actually. Wherever you go to find a house, you might be thinking, oh, is my school very nearby? Or is my station nearby? Or am I having a superstore nearby? Why you are thinking? Because they are all closely related. And therefore, if we keep thinking as usual and make decisions like usual in the sense of just in the systems, just one system, then it is not proper, because it is deeply our practices are deeply rooted in our decision making, and they need to be changed. We must be looking from the by combining the technological change and the social change and the environmental change and the cultural change and the international and local change and all. We must be looking into all these changes whenever we are talking about our process and what we need to change. Okay, and mainly we must be overcoming the uncertainties between these systems and our decision making, because we do not understand the systems of all the systems, and definitely one person cannot understand everything, and therefore there are uncertainties. But if we get together and we combine our knowledge from one system to another system or within the parts of the system, then we can decrease those uncertainties. And therefore, we must overcome these multiple and deep uncertainties. And we must more and more understand the dynamic interrelationships or interdependentships of the wider values, cultures, and institutions, and cross-scale global and intergenerational problems. Now, there are other arguments also supporting the transformation of theoretical framing. Like when you are here, when you are listening to the series, you have a theoretical framing that I will gain some knowledge, and therefore you want to do this. And any decision, so decision to attend this series is that you have an argument that you will get a knowledge. So there is a outcome of this series, attendance to this series. And therefore, we have to think of all these outcomes. Now, when we are talking from the, when we look at the history of decision-making, we naturally wanted economic development. And therefore, we went for the economic framing. And that encouraged the model capitalism and globalism. And we have attained that, definitely. At individual level and at national level, we have become prosper. We have gained prosperity. We have gained economic outcome. But we have impacted our environment by doing that. So we lost that our thinking on that environment, and we lost our resources. Likewise, we also then later thought about our social framing. We looked through the social framing, and we thought that we must make people prosperous. We must give everyone what they need. But while we are thinking this, or while we are doing this, we have uplifted the poverty on the whole world. And we are now left with only very less % of poverty, which is really, really good achievement. However, we have to use natural resources to do that. And therefore, we must, and unlimited resources will be used in these things. And therefore, we have to be conscious. We have to form a balance where we want to stop and where we want to manage. Likewise, if we are looking from the organizational framing, there also it populates or encourages the investment into the capital building. That is, we have to grow, grow, grow. But this is also, again, not good. And from the political framing, we have regulations. But sometimes regulations are also very hard, and they are hard to achieve, and then they fail to give out the real outcome. And therefore, what we need all the framings to come together. And therefore, we need to transform theoretical framing, and that will transform our purpose, and that will transform our outcomes. And therefore, these dynamics of this complex system, we need to think and build into our systems thinking. Now, as I already said, that system thinking has been contested or debated from a long time, and therefore various models of system thinking have been presented. And I have named here only few of them, which I am applying here, and they are mainly commonly applied into our real world. Coupled human and natural system, where this system looks at the human and the environment. However, when we look at human and environment, then we fall short of those social aspects. And therefore, we must be thinking of other system as well. Now, another system thinking model is given by Gills, which is socio-technical system, and it looks at social and technical. So here there is again fall of environment. And though the socio-technical system has been very, very popular throughout the world because of the users, social is users, and the technical is the technical of products which give us. And that has gone very far, like has been very advanced in our society, because it is always thought that customers are the king of the products, and therefore users influence the technical or product side, and the products are changed or developed according to what the user wants. And that is how our socio-technical system works. Now, complex adaptive system is a system where, and it is mainly at the organizational level, and it is it looks into the internal environment and the external environment. And it is a complex adaptive system, which means that the internal environment of the system must be adaptive to the external environment. So, for example, new regulation has been implemented, then they must address the problem or address the pressure of the regulations coming on their internal system. And they must be also aligned with the high level landscape policies going on outside the system. And then only your organization would be at the competitive age, would be able to address any pressures coming from the external environment. And just now, at this moment, I think it is very important, because the problem like COVID from the external environment has so much pressure on the internal environment of the systems like any organization. And therefore, they must adapt to the different forms of operations or any other processes, so that they can be resilient and they can address this problem effectively. Just as we are now going on online teaching from the classroom teaching. So these are very important. And finally, I would like to bring into the broader concept of sustainable development in response to paradigm shift of this framing and decision making, which I spoke earlier in 2 slides. That having all this knowledge in mind, we must go into the broader conceptualization of sustainable development. And I will be talking to it in future slides. I will be talking more on it. So here, first, let me go into the socio-technical system a little bit more, which talks about multi-level perspective of socio-technical system. And someone has already mentioned about micro and macro. But I would also like to introduce you to meso level, which is the current level, which we are all working in. And that is called regime also. And that is that regime is like a mainstream. What mainstream is doing? Macro is the global level where all the policies, global level policies, for example, globally, we have thought that there is a global warming, and everyone has accepted that we must reduce global warming, and we have adopted that climate change is there, and there is a climate change policy at a very high level, which is called macro. And these are putting pressures on us. While micro is at an individual level or a very small scale level where innovations are going on or people are working on their own, but they are also trying to influence the regime level but the pressure is also from the macro level. And someone like me have thought about developing this network, and I developed the network, but now it is a mainstream because we have 1,000 people. So something like that. So each individuals are doing their own work, but they are pressured by the mainstream as well as the macro level. But then those innovations can fill into the mainstream. And there is a potential of actualizing the transition then. And the transition becomes, happens into the meso level. And I will explain more on that by bringing that how this transition happens. So here, as I already mentioned, that the individual level, and you can see here is the niche, where at the bottom side, niche and innovation, he said, many people do innovation. And I'm sure here also, I have seen whoever are speaking and answering here, they are a part of innovative system here. You know, they must have gone into something detail and they show that they have done some innovation here. And these innovations remain in their own until they get the market in the meso level to flourish and to influence the mainstream. And that influence can only happen when that window opens. And the window opens when there is a pressure from the high level and the impact or the working of the innovation works. When these two meet, they can become a main level. They can flourish at the meso level. So for example, initially we had only one or two types of cars, but later on, it happened so that we were able to, the pressure was such from the high level or the globalization and so on, that technologies, various technologies developed, and finally cars got the mainstream, and now they are so common that each house might have one car. So it is something like it takes time to become into mainstream, but it is always started by individual, and then it goes into mainstream, pressured by the global policies or pressured by the global environment. And this is how it works in a socio-technical system. And this multi-level perspective is very important. Here, this Gills has mentioned of only 3 levels, but I say there are multiple levels in between. If you drill into it, there are multiple levels, but we are not going into too many details. But you might have to, when you are talking about problem solving and analysis, you might have to go into many, many details of this. Now here I'm talking about the complex adaptive system, and which I like the most because that applies to individual and at organizational level as well as at the higher level. And here this figure 1 explains the internal mechanism, that it is dynamic, it is a quasi-equilibrium is happening, that is, there is an emergence. So when there is a pressure from outside environment, the internal environment changes, they try to adjust to it, try to find the solution to it, and there is a quasi-equilibrium, that is, yes, this is nice, this is not, and so there's a trial type phase is going on, and then once they are happy with what it is, then there a new property emerges out of that old environment, and that new property is called emergence. I'm talking about these terminologies which may not be very familiar to you, but I'm sure we visualize, we experience in our daily lives. Sorry. And then now in this second figure, I explain different 3 parts, which I already mentioned: drivers, decision-making, and the outcomes. And agents, whoever, they can be human and non-human, as I already mentioned in the system thinking. They are the agents of working in a system. And they have particular governing rules, or you can say the principles, or you can say the values, mission of that organization, and they work accordingly. So I can give you an example that here in UK, we have a target of achieving reducing energy use by 80% by 2050. So that is my target, okay? If I'm in an organization and if that target has been adopted by me, then that is my target. Then all agents in the organization will try to work towards that target. And so that target becomes our governing rule. It governs our actions, and the agents do the action, and then the outcomes come out of it. And they are called systems outcome. And what should be the outcome? What outcome should be in relation to the target, isn't it? The desired outcome. But sometimes we do not reach the target, and therefore these systems need to feedback that what were the problems or not achieving those targets, or what were the challenges, they are called challenges, and or what were the uncertainties we encountered while we were doing this. And so there is a feedback loop. And therefore, any system is an iterative process. It has a feedback loop and it is iterative process. Now here I have a very complex figure, which is about integrated, complex, adaptive, and socio-technical system. I have given here just to absorb. I won't go into too many details here, because when I'm talking about in the future workshop, when I'm talking about the leading sustainable futures or leading your sustainable transformation, I will be touching on this and talking about this. So there are other examples. Now this figure is the development of my PhD, my product of my PhD, and I'm very proud of it, that I was able to bring all the system thinking and different aspects, say various principles and processes of system thinking into this. However, it is not actually, I cannot claim that it is the absolute answer, but it is a framework which can allow you to decide and move forward towards your sustainable transformation. And I have already applied this model for 2 examples. And this is an English housing system where I have applied to achieve energy efficiency and sustainability in housing sector. And secondly, I have applied here, and I have all these papers out, and they are in open access, so you can read them. But even following workshops, I will explain them in a lot of details. This example is at a workplace, that how we can bring change in a workplace where it is user friendly, that is the employee friendly, and it is also preferred by the employers. So you can see that the users and the socio-technical, that is. And I have also brought complex adaptive system. So I have brought in several aspects of different systems in here and presented this model. And it works. At least it has worked for these 2 cases. Okay, so now I think I'm running out of time, so I will stop for methods, but I will just speak on, I won't go into discussion or anything, but I will quickly just tell you few things, that when we are talking about system thinking, we must be looking at how, why, what questions, and therefore we must be looking at qualitative research, which I touched upon earlier also. And we must also be, and these are few things about qualitative research, but we must also looking at quantitative research, because facts, return of values, return of investment, they are very important in an organization or anyone who does anything. And therefore we must be looking at the qualitative research also. And here again, qualitative research, I have made few things on that. These are all very common thing, and you can find outside also. They are not too much related to any complexity or system thinking, but these methods must be applied for system thinking. And therefore, when we are talking about qualitative and quantitative, we must be applying to mixed methods, which can bring both aspects of both methods, qualitative and quantitative. And here, yes, therefore, it is again, I will go back to one of those answers and discussion of transdisciplinarity, because that is very important, that when we are looking into one system, and you have already now made an understanding around that, that any one discipline cannot solve your problem. Looking only from the sociological point of view, or only looking from the physical point of view, or only looking from the technological point of view, you cannot solve. And therefore we must be transdisciplinarity, apply transdisciplinarity, transfer our disciplines to another level. And I will show you in this slide now. Okay, yes. One another thing is that in a system thinking, it is very, very important to have a balance between all these our objectives. We might have social objective, we might have environmental objective, we might have technological objective, and we need to ensure a balance. Also, it is very important to consensus building between different perspectives of the participants giving value or valuing that system. So knowing employees and knowing employers and the other stakeholders of your organization is very, very important. And again, this quantitative and qualitative relates to objectivity and subjectivity. These all are very specific terminology, but I'm sure you are using these things in daily life without knowing it. Okay. We will come across several examples in the following series workshops, and you will we will try to make you explain you this again and again. Now, when I was talking about transdisciplinarity, this is that it is discipline 1, discipline 2. So any discipline, I'm talking about, say, mathematics, physics, sociology, social science, and so on. And if we bring all these disciplines, then it should allow everyone to engage and go to a new level of understanding, and that is called transdisciplinarity. And that is very, very important in systems thinking and problem solving. And here again, I have showed subjectivity and objectivity. And again, this one thing is very important here is that users are form the main part of the system, and they are, whatever the knowledge they have is called systems knowledge, and the decision maker form a minor part of the system, but they are very important, and they have target knowledge. They know what to decide and how to move forward, and therefore they bring target knowledge. And what is important in system thinking, that you combine both these knowledge to inform the transformational knowledge, that how we will change and how we will bring the change and bring these technical, social, legal, cultural, and all disciplines or objectives, or say that impact on these outcomes. Then that is called transformational knowledge. And therefore we need to bring systems knowledge and target knowledge together. And here I will now stop. So this is my slide, and I will stop and I will hand it over to Khoo. No, sorry, Dr. Josh.
Well, good morning to you. I'll first start sharing some slides, see if we can have a vision together. Hope you can all see this. Greetings from Western Europe. Good morning, good day, afternoon to all of you. Is my voice okay?
Yes, it is okay.
Okay, now I'm welcoming you here from the land of the Dutch mountains. As you see in our highway system, we are a very systemized, connected, closely connected country, even the most densely populated following Bangladesh. So when we consider systems thinking, we feel it every day. Our beautiful landscape, very closely connected to the industrial production, consumption. We are crowded, we are busy, and we live literally back to back and shoulder to shoulder. So when we think about systems, and thank you, Dr. Renuka, for giving me so many points to grasp onto, but when we think about systems, we learn to see it as one holistic thing. And that's what I want to briefly talk about now. And I'll keep that very short. Please see this as a brief academic intervention on systems thinking. I would like to underline that indeed systems thinking is not novel. It's not a new invention, but you already mentioned that. So I'm looking quite critical at its usefulness for sustainable development and our way forward. And I even doubt if we as humans are capable of handling all knowledge system thinking, and which you so elegantly summed up, Dr. Renuka, all the knowledge system thinking provides us with. I dare to question, can we handle that? For example, when we think about people, planet, profit, we tend to see that as 3 dimensions that we can manage, that we can control. In my view, it's one world. It's one interconnected, even mess of interrelations. So we try to systemize things that are perhaps even much more complex than we realize in our daily lives. If we look back briefly, the time of Aristotle and Plato in the Middle Ages here in Western Europe, we had decennia in which we believed we got it all together. You know, we understood the world and the moon and the sun, where things were going, the place of the church, our culture and our beliefs. Then in the enlightening phase, we started to reconsider. Plato came up again, overruled Aristotle, and great thinkers said, well, knowledge should be about fixed things, about what we know about interconnections, causality, relations. Actually, we started rethinking in the early 1600s and say, yes, but even if that is so, if we promise ourselves entire understanding, our senses tell us reality is different. And I want to underline senses. I'll come back to that shortly. So knowledge, the absoluteness, became questioned. That's the birth of modern day science. If we look back at those days, and you mentioned that, Dr. Renuka, of course, systems thinking has been with us for thousands of years. Look at our understanding of our own biology, health, of agriculture, of more recently the economic systems. We already tried to describe everything in terms of systems, put that in books, created subjects and created disciplines. So it's not brand new. And you mentioned correctly that we need systems thinking to understand the long term and to realize what we do today, the effects for tomorrow, but especially for 50 to 100 years from now. But let's be critical about that also, because systems thinking already came to us in the early 70s. It was the time of the Beatles and the Stones, of the war in Vietnam. Already then people thought about systems thinking, and you all, I think most of you, if not all of you, read The Limits to Growth. Imagine that this very prominent warning about unsustainable development dates back 50 years. Take a pause. For 50 years, we know what we're doing. And I would even like to state more than 50 years. And still, we are ill in our actions. So that should puzzle our academic minds. Why? Is it so that we still, although we talk, we think about systems and interrelations, isn't it so that we are still seeking the linear solution? We still believe we can go from A to B in a linear line. So I question, indeed, if we can grasp all these different themes, subjects, disciplines, elements, this humble and jumble, if we can handle that. We should delude ourselves, I think. If we, for example, take the very simple system of our organizations, of our institutes, I saw during my career that the various gears are not interlinked. You could reason if somebody's doing A, the other will do Z at a certain time. That's not so. The wheels are not interlinked. Their grip is greasy or even broke. It is not logic. I will briefly explain why that is, I think. So some wheels may slip, will not do what we think they do or what they are supposed to do. Look at our financial system today. It's not logical anymore. Our stock markets are going berserk. Interest rates are going berserk. We are completely shaken by a small virus at the moment. So let's be very critical, because our lives, our welfare dimensions, our well-being, our relationship with Earth is also cluttered. We don't have a strict housing system or financial system. The way I see it is that all is interdispersed with small fractions of people, with phenomena that we cannot control, and perhaps we don't even see them today. So the picture is much more cluttered than many of us think. So we have this, and of course, I'm hopeful, I'm positive. We have this strive to bring all these interrelations together, create a tree and create fruits and outcomes, steer our life and cure Earth. But I think if you look at this picture, many of you will sense it's organic. It's not linear. It's completely interconnected. So it's not only systems interconnected in themselves and systems with systems, the whole thing is a breathing, moving organism. It's not standing still. And the delicate thing is, as soon as we touch it, as soon as we study it, it changes. We cannot measure without invoking change ourselves. So it's very questionable if we can go to the chalkboard of our universities or company rooms and boardrooms and say, okay, I'll take the chalkboard and I'll tell you how the system works. We should not delude ourselves there. What we can hope for is that we understand by now that our brain is transdisciplinary. We can think continuously with the speed of light on all these elements. It gives us a headache, and it makes us uneasy, and sometimes we don't understand anymore. But deep down inside, we have this capacity to interrelate, understand. And sometimes it's so complex, we just say to each other, we have this hunch feeling. I think I know, but I don't know why. There is the hope, and this hope manifests itself in the youngest amongst us. I'm very much convinced of that, and that's what my research the previous 8 years has been about. Youngsters, children, youth have still this multicolored lens. They still associate. They're very fast thinkers. They are not wrought into our systems. They didn't take a place yet. They're still outside the linear thinking. So the hope I like to express, and I'll finish by that for today, is to unleash students' associative capacity and to generate new educators to help them do that. So the seed of change, in my view there, people, is in education. It is not in subjects, not in disciplines. It's even more than inter or multidisciplinary. It's about transdisciplinary reasoning about themes that define our future. All our knowledge should not be, let me say, quantified in systems that we generated as of today, but we should take those themes that define our world: water, food, construction, health, poverty, friendship. I think these main themes, these large drivers, that is what we should learn about anytime, any place, through any device and with anybody. So there's the mission. And that's the message I want to leave you with at this moment. How can we help our next generation to think integral and be citizens of the world, changing this world as of today? Thank you very much.
Hello, is everybody able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. So it was very impressive from Dr. Renuka and Jos about having presentations before me. And Jos, you have very colorful slides, almost as good as Van Gogh's paintings. So, and this really lightened up the presentation. I will very quickly go through from the business side what we think of sustainability, systems thinking, and problem solving. I come from the business background, so I think this is the way business people think about it. We would like to say that business people are naturally systems thinkers because they got to consider several topics at the same time. Now, I'd like to let everybody know that the ASEAN countries, the counterpart to the European Union, has in October recently adopted a framework for a circular economy for the ASEAN Economic Community. And this is very recent, and they have a framework with guiding principles and strategic priorities. It's an example of systems thinking in policy, in action, all across the ASEAN countries, including the Philippines. So they are looking at various aspects with strategic priorities. This was to overcome the difficulties with the linear economy system, which we know has been pervasive, and there is the wasteful part of it. And the whole idea is to have a regenerative, restorative, and resilient economy that tries to minimize waste and increase the usefulness of all the materials within the system, so to speak, so that we have a better effectiveness and use of resources at our command. So as an introduction, this has been happening at the ASEAN level. As it is stated here, there are already initiatives taking place in every country, in every industry, but this is the first time that we're looking at it from the whole global level. Now, I'd like to give you 3 examples of how systems approach has been taking place in the business sector. As you know, electronic products have this thing called built-in obsolescence. And, it was at a time when there was economic recession and depression, there were some laws made that allowed or encouraged companies to build in obsolescence so that we can have more products and that people can buy, and we can have increasing consumerism and economic growth. But what we have is that, as you know, you buy one handphone today, you throw it away in the next 3 years, if not 3 months, So the challenge is, can we look at how to design for the better system whereby you conserve on resources? This is a challenge. For example, you want to insert eco-design into a business model. This is where systems thinking has to come in. And it is going to, as the chart shows, affect several areas from environmental, economic to the social aspects of actually how you do things. And in terms of, let's say, sustainable electronics design, optimizing this design becomes an issue. And this is where it's almost difficult to ask iPhone, can we stop coming up with a new iPhone every 1 or 2 years? Stick to one model and have it long lasting, and it all goes back to the consumer too. If the consumer is looking at wanting a new feature every 3 months, then you have difficulty. So you have to deal with expectations, and so it's a very complicated process. And I think this is where, starting with design, you have to look at how systems are affected by it and how to insert a design or eco-design into the thing. Now, the other area that I want to introduce is sustainable agriculture. As you know, agriculture is identified as a problem area, not only for food production, but for GHG emissions. So if you're looking at systems change at the meta level, how do you achieve a paradigm shift in farming? There are a lot of issues now affecting the climate. And as I said earlier, 30% of GHG emissions are attributed to the agriculture sector. And we depend on very few crops, not enough range in the crops. And then we depend on a certain model where we deal with a lot of fertilizers and various things. I'd like to say that we have farming systems. They were originally farming systems that were very natural. The whole rural area dealt with natural decomposition of composting, and we have very little fertilizer in the system. But with the industrialization of agriculture, you have a lot of introduction of artificial inputs like chemicals and pesticides, and you actually suppress the microbiome in the natural system. So when you look at the range of farming systems, we have the conventional system that suppresses the natural system, the microbiome, and it creates large-scale intensive agriculture and monocropping. And this really has a lot of impact on the health of our soil and the type of crops that we can grow and the choices that are available to the community at large. And we are trying to effect change away from this. We're looking at organic, natural farming, and integrated farming. This chart shows basically if you try to move from a conventional system to a non-conventional system, you have to work at so many levels, supporting transformative systems while improving their performance for one. If you try to address organic, you can only rise so much. You cannot replace the conventional system, let's say with organic systems. And then you have stimulating demand for more sustainable products. You got to encourage people to, get to be used to maybe your lettuce with a bit of insect holes instead of all clean without any insect holes. And to increase the incentivization of incremental systems, improvement in all systems is a real big challenge. So this slide is basically to let you know how difficult it is to achieve a paradigm shift. My third area is in logistics. I have been advising on sustainable logistics as well. And when you look at logistics, there are so many technological factors that are going in now. And I'll run this through quickly. A lot of the logistics companies are interested, for example, in creating a whole ecosystem with which to work in, from assessment of what is possible to developing what should be in time to come, and to integrate the whole concept, to partner with other parties to set up a systems governance, the ecosystem governance. I use the word ecosystem here. It's very interesting because it's taken from biology, but it is adapted to a lot of technology systems at the moment. And this is an example of the elements that you get that you need to think of. You have digitization, you have the enablers, you have augmented reality, the various technologies itself, and you have various other aspects like the various dimensions of economics, environmental, and social aspects. And you think in terms of an operation system, when you are actually operating as a manager or as a company executive within a logistics ecosystem, there are so many aspects that you got to think of, going from industrial 1.0 to 4.0, and I won't go into all these. The other is the rapid advances in technology require us to be looking at so many aspects, including 3D printing, or even robotics, or even drones to deliver driverless cars, blockchain to look at traceability, cybersecurity to make sure that your logistics is not hacked and diverted somewhere else in the meantime. So you can imagine how complicated it is. And I like to end by describing what I see as a circular economy model transiting into a more sophisticated urban metabolism model. As Jos and I think Dr. Renuka mentioned, one is that we can advocate for more systems thinking, but at the same time, it gets more and more complicated. It gets more and more difficult to handle. You have more and more complexity. But circular economy has been what we can handle so far. It's been promoted in the EU to develop policy frameworks with which to generate growth, new growth. In fact, the circular economy is considered the next $1 trillion industry or business or way of operating. But there are limitations. It only maximizes value along the value chain. You're looking at a mechanistic and reductionist work on view. And most important, I've read in a lot of critiques regarding circular economy, you're basically maximizing economic value only within a social and ecological context. So you're looking and working in a capitalist framework as well. You're looking at profit maximizing, but reducing waste and all that. Whereas if you graduate into an urban metabolism system, basically what this means is that as we move towards greater urbanization and we have more complexity, we're actually experiencing difficulties with handling this complexity. Mankind has not been able to handle the complexity of urban systems that we live in. And so what do we need? We need advance in concept and approach and perspective to handle this. And that system thinking offers that in the highest degree. You have several levels of scale, multiple levels of overlay from spatial, demographic, infrastructural, energy use, waste streams, even geographical and temporal streams come into play. Higher order interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary analysis is required. And you really want to capture the synergy between these value chains and layers. And what we hope for is to capture holistic value for all the various parts of the dimensions that sustainability represents. And with that, I'd like to end. I know my time is short. I hope I managed to capture it within the time frame. But back to you, to the host, and thank you for letting me have my 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you. Again, thank you to the members of the delivery team, Dr. Renuka Thakore, Dr. Jos Eussen, and Sir Khoo, Hock for such a comprehensive and insightful discussion on systems thinking and problem analysis. To our participants, let us give them our virtual claps. Okay, thank you. Definitely our participants have surely learned a lot. Your discussions may have sparked some questions from our participants, or at this juncture, our virtual floor is now ready for our open forum. You may want to type in your questions or comments via our chat box, or you are enjoined to unmute yourselves and ask your questions. This is a high time to get more information and insights from our delivery team. So the virtual floor is now open. Okay. So there are some comments here. They are appreciating the informative session from our speakers. Okay, can we have the first question from the group? Okay, so based on the discussion of Dr. Thakore, ma'am, you've mentioned, can I give the first question, Dr. Renuka? Or you are on mute, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yes. I am very curious about the theoretical framings that you shared with us. Yes, ma'am. From the theoretical framings, which, based on your experience, ma'am, in terms of systems thinking, which is the most challenging to manage in terms of systems thinking application?
I think a political system, political perspectives is very challenging to manage for any common user, because we are when we are in business, we look at regulations, we look at our employees, we look at our external environment, what is supply chain and so on. But the political uncertainties bring so much pressure nowadays that we are unable to keep hold on that sometimes. And I think Khoo or Josh might also have something to add here.
Thank you, Dr. Thakore.
Would Josh like to go first? Or
No, you go first.
okay. As I understand the question, it is which area of systems thinking is most difficult. I think my own opinion is that when we run into systems thinking, we run into conventional thinking, and this is found in a lot in business as usual in business, and they always think in terms of their own silos in the areas that they think in. For example, it is not easy to get a company to think in terms of a value chain where you think of an upstream and a downstream. So they stick to basically their system boundaries, as we mentioned earlier in the last lecture. And they will basically not take into account the external costs, and they still keep to their own usual ways of doing things and calculating profits and not regarding the actual environmental or social costs. So that's a very challenging aspect. So I gather this would be in the area of the community and the conventional business thinking. Whereas I think in the governmental policy levels, they're more open to new concepts, and they're open to looking at how to do new policies. And I think they were more receptive, and also the academic sector where all this research is being done. I hope you agree, Jos. Perhaps I'd like to.
Yeah, very, very much so, Khoo. I even want to expand that briefly. I think that the biggest challenge with systems thinking, as far as we experienced, is that we chopped up our society. We boxed our society, so to speak. So we think indeed from islands and disciplinary silos, but we should realize we are creating them every day. So there are two dimensions to this problem. We are in boxes. And if you observe the person within the box, he or she is per definition performing, acting, playing a role from the institution. Whether you're in a company, a municipality, university, NGO, you behave in a certain way. So the third dimension, the person herself, is not addressed enough. That's where I would like to base the transition on. So not the boxes, not the roles, but the people. And we are the people, as we are gathered here today also. And the people are instructed through subjects and disciplines, are prepared to take a role in the machinery. So my advice is you should get out of the machinery in order to turn it around, to understand it. So the most positive, let's wake ourselves up all together. One more sentence, for example, with clothing, in just wearing a jeans today, we can try to understand the fashion system, which is full of power and influential people and money. But we can also decide to skip one fashion season. If we all together skip fashion for one season, we manage to get the Paris Agreement done only through fashion. And that's us, the people, that can do that anytime.
Thank you very much for the responses from our delivery team. Okay, we have some questions here in the chat box. Let me read this to the three speakers. Considering the current dynamically changing situations where we are faced with multiple challenges, how can systems thinking be utilized effectively when the dynamics are such rapidly growing and evolving? That's from, I hope I can pronounce the name, Tushar Pradhan from India.
Thank you, Tushar. Very interesting question and very important. The society is dynamic just now. The current situation is so much dynamic. Now, systems thinking, I did touch on one word, which is emergence. It has an emergence property. Now, through system thinking, we can predict some forecast, like we can forecast what will be the performance of our system. One thing, if we know more about our system, that is, there are less, our understanding have less uncertainties. Any system, as I already mentioned, that there are several models and several principles and several models must be applied to our system thinking, not only one. If we stick on socio-technical system, then we are still limited. But if we, along with that, if we apply complex adaptive system, which has an adaptation to the situation and the emergence of that system performance, then we can be adaptive and we emerge. And for all these, we need strategic capabilities, the capabilities to increase our capacity to address these pressures coming from dynamics of the system. And so agents need to be very, very effective leaders here, understand their environment effectively, and then govern the system effectively. So it also lies on the individual leadership, taking ownership and being adaptive and trying to increase their strategic capabilities. So these are the things that, like, people must be ready. They should always be ready for any problems that are coming up. So I will stop here and I will ask others to add.
Yeah, let me briefly add, just see in the question in the chat the word public-private partnerships, and you're completely right, Dr. Renuka, that we need leadership, that we need strength, that we need direction and an integral view. But let us think out loud also what I just briefly remarked about the boxes. If we want to try to put the boxes together, public-private partnerships or otherwise, we in the Netherlands actually we're very famous about our democracy and getting everybody around the table and chatting and talking and doing the blah blah. That's typically Dutch. We talk all day, but those times are gone. I think the world is one place now, is one place to live on altogether. So partnerships is of the past. I think we should emerge from our boxes. And we are bright and brilliant enough to do so. We don't need those role models. We don't need, as a brief example, if two companies decide to cooperate, that is something completely different than a merger. My plea would be, Khoo, we need a merger. We don't need imperfect cooperation anymore because Earth has no time anymore to wait for us. We wasted decades and decades. So it is not a haste, there is no panic and there is no doom. But we should take the opportunity absolutely now to re-educate our youngsters to begin with and let them lead. Warn them not to march the streets on Friday. What a nonsense. It's a waste of capacity. We need youngsters and study food and water and healthcare for the elderly. If we now take up that challenge, imagine if we'd done that in 71. We would have had people my age having had the chance to work like this for 40 years, but we wasted that opportunity. So my plea is think transdisciplinary, get out of the box, forget about partnerships, start learning again together.
If I may, Jos and Renuka, one of the things that I think is lacking so far in the planet today is holistic thinking, especially among leaders, government leaders, business leaders, maybe up to a certain extent, community leaders. The holistic thinking here I define as taking into account both the environment, the ecology, society, and everything in its perspective. Think of it as a whole. We tend to think of everything too much in parts. We only take care of our own little part and that's okay, but not enough holistic thinking. And holistic thinking is very much embedded in systems thinking. You need to have that value system within systems thinking, because you can have very good systems, but the systems has to be in service of who and what. If it is in service of only a few, then it's not really holistic thinking. It must be in service of everybody. Then you need to have a very good objective in that sense. And in that sense, the suggestion by Bella for public-private community partnership. Public is the government sector, private is the private sector. Where's the community in this? So it should be the public, private, and community partnership. That completes the holism and the holistic perspective that should be having. And I'd like to address Tusha's question. Things are getting more complicated and we're having multiple challenges, to the issues and the problems that are arising. Can systems thinking effectively be utilized? One is the leadership, one is the clear-headed perspective of holism. Everything goes into the box and the soup, so to mix. And then the use of technology. Every day, big data analytics, AI development, software capabilities enable us. I think of artificial intelligence as the prosthetic for human consciousness. We have, through all these tools now, ability to have a better grasp of systems. This is in a way directly replying to you, Jos, about your questions. Can we handle complexity? The technology today, I think, enables us to do that. And again, in service of who? In service, of course, everyone to benefit. I'll stop there.
Thank you. I will just add a few things here that, yes, we want holistic system. We want all this together. But the problem is that where we have quantitative data from AI and other things, we do not have qualitative data. We have qualitative data, we do not have quantitative data. And therefore, these realistic decision-making are fall off in the sense of they do not reach the real outcomes. And therefore, I think each and every individual in the society needs to be aware of these things. We must take our time to think through and research through each and our activity. Are we doing it actually the way we want to do it, and it is providing the outcome that we wanted? And therefore, if we take some time, each and every person needs to be a researcher, needs to be a practitioner, and needs to be a little bit literate also around this. And if we all take our ownership, I think collectively, we will be able to help the government and the community and ourselves. So I will stop here now.
Okay, thank you for your answers. Do we have some more questions from our participants? Okay, so let me read this. I think we all agree that systems thinking, interdisciplinary communications would need that we think out of the box. But how can these brilliant scientific and creative ideas and projects to be seen and accepted and acted upon by the present leaders in both government and the business? Coming from Ma'am Clarissa Floresca.
How can they accept them? Well, let me very briefly, this is a good question, absolutely, but it also presumes leaders in industry don't know, or politicians don't know, and we have to tell them. I might assure you that politicians and industry leaders do know. So what we need is the impulse to get them moving. That now we judge these leaders in their present role. So it is up to us to change our way of judging what they do. They're doing excellent jobs. It only doesn't fit together in sustainability terms, but they really know what they do. For the example of the jeans, I am absolutely sure the major producer of fashions know exactly how they are wasting the world. But as long as we buy the jeans, we are the producers. We are the consumers. So my advice would be, in my thinking, go one step beyond a question like this.
Exactly, I will agree. And that's why my previous point was there, that we, each and individual, must be thinking what we are doing. And we all together can have that pressure on the government or the other policies or anything that can change the world. So yes, we must start, like it is always said, isn't it? The change comes from yourself. Like you have to be changed if you want the change.
Yeah.
And exactly that is what we should be doing. Thank you.
Exactly, Renuka and Jos, I quite agree. In fact, I used to serve a lot on various high-level global boards for sustainability, and everybody was working from a top-down approach, trying to get from the industry to frame standards and practices and get the rest of everybody to follow. But it's not working. You're not getting enough buy-in. And just as I said, maybe at the last session we had, I wonder whether it was before COP, when politicians get into the act of discussion and negotiation, they are tied in, their hands are tied by their constituencies. Their constituencies are telling them we can only accept this and not more. So it's just a horse trading and a bartering, and in the end, we get a very watered down version of what's needed for the rest of the world. So you cannot, I say, given that situation, you cannot expect too much from the business leaders nor the political leaders. But what you can do is take it into your own hands, like what Jos is saying, work at the community level and create movements and create enough momentum that you can make an influence on the political leaders that they can't have their hands tied behind their back. Their hands have to be free. The people have to speak. And business leaders have to listen to consumers. We don't buy fashion for one season. And you know, you can have a sustainable lifestyle. You can have a sufficient lifestyle. You don't need to have an over-sufficient lifestyle. So it's all a personal choice, and we can actually do a lot more individually. collectively. When we do each of us individually in the same way, we are collectively acting. I think there's more to be achieved.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And thank you very much, Khoo. And adding to that tiny fragment, that's why we believe in youth.
Yeah.
Because our conscience, our present conscience, the way we were educated, our experience, made cowards of us all. A great poet once said that, you know, a Danish poet, William Shakespeare, and he was right. He was actually a perfect people assessor. And you should not take that as an offense, but we all are cowards if we don't take the opportunity to have our children at least understand how they can act. So I often propose everybody 30 plus should shut up and get at the side.
And support.
I tell youth or the young people that you are trendy. So try to be trendy in sustainability. Try to do different things and people will follow you. So
exactly. That is the main and youth. Perhaps only reason, Renuka, why we got together here at Baliuag University to
so
get
thank
this
you
going.
very much, everyone. I think it was a wonderful discussion, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to the members of the delivery team. Well, if you have some more questions or comments, you may, of course, you can always email the committee of this webinar. Okay. Once again, to the members of the delivery team, thank you very much. Maraming salamat in Filipino here in the Philippines for generously answering the questions of our participants. Thank you as well to the participants for your active participation. Once again, let's give the members of the delivery team our virtual applause. At this juncture, may I now request your cooperation in evaluating our webinar. Kindly check the chat box for the evaluation link. Please answer the evaluation before the end of our program. To those who have questions on how you can get your electronic certificate, e-certificates will be directly emailed to us, to the participants. Only those who will complete or who completed the 6 sessions will be given a certificate of participation in Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. All right, so we are almost done with our second webinar. The members of the delivery team have more in store for all of us, envisioning the empowerment of our participants to take an active role in shaping a sustainable future. On that note, we are all heading to the remaining webinar topics. So we are done last November in the Introduction to Sustainability, just today, Systems Thinking and Problem Analysis. By next year of January 14, we will have the meaning and impact of the SDGs, followed by Sustainability Leadership, then Global Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility, and finally, Leading Sustainable Transformation. Please be informed that just like the first webinar we held last November, a learning evaluation in a form of a quiz will be emailed to all of us. We enjoin everyone to answer the quiz. Just an information, there will be a culminating activity at the end of this webinar series in April 2022, wherein we will know as well the results of the quizzes to be emailed to us as participants. We now come to the end of our webinar, inspired and motivated to come together for a sustainable future. Just a reminder to all our participants, we shall have our group picture taking in a while. For the formal closing of our event, let me now give the virtual floor to Dr. Flordeliza A. Castro, the Vice President for Academic Affairs of Baliuag University, Philippines, for her closing remarks. Dr. Castro?
Thank you, Dr. Tayao. As mentioned by Dr. Tayao, this is the second series among the 6 lecture series that we will be holding for Baliuag University and the delivery team of the Shaping Sustainable Future Together series. So in behalf of the delivery team and the entire Baliuag University community, we'd like to say thank you to the participants this afternoon. And we would like to also thank the president of the university for supporting all the projects of the university as part of the internationalization of the institution. Again, we'd like to say thank you to Dr. Renuka. I learned a lot from your lecture about sustainability systems thinking. Dr. Jos, as you said it, let us unleash our students and make them think out of the box, and that we should go from interdisciplinary to transdisciplinary system in education. On the business side, I was able to learn a lot from Dr. Khoo regarding sustainable business model, sustainable agriculture, a shift in terms of paradigm shift, in terms of farming should really be done. And then I think the last one is your ecosystem building process. So as mentioned by Dr. Renuka, there are several systems thinking principles, and I'd like to reiterate and give emphasis to the last one, that we are part of the system. Again, as reiterated by Dr. Khoo and Dr. Eussen, and together, if we work together, we would be able to really sustain all these 17 sustainable goals as mentioned to us at the first part of the lecture series last month. Again, in behalf of the university, we'd like to say thank you to everyone. We'll have 4 more series to attend to. And at the end, we are happy to announce, as mentioned by Dr. Tayao, that you'll be receiving your certificates of participation. So again, let us see together, each other again together on January, on February, on March, and your graduation on April 2022. Maraming salamat po. I should say it in Filipino, in the Philippines. Maraming salamat. The English version is thank you. And again, we'd like to say Merry Christmas to everyone and advance Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone, and good day. Good night and good evening and good morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. May I now request everyone to kindly turn on your cameras for our group picture taking.
Alex returned home.
Okay.
All right, I'll be in charge of taking the picture. So kindly please, again, if we may request everyone to turn on your cameras and of course, show your beautiful smiles. Excited for the holidays, right?
Yes.
Okay, for a while. Okay, in the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm in the first frame. 1, 2, 3. Okay, kindly hold your smile while I copy it in my file. First frame. I'm now in the second frame. Then again, we request everyone to turn on their videos if you can. Okay, and then third frame. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Thank you so much,
Okay,
everyone.
done. We have our second group picture taking. We'll have more to go. Thank you very much for your active engagement. Let's be challenged to expand our horizons on problem solving and opportunity seeking. Again, I am Hasmin Tayao from Baliuag University, Philippines. See you all in the third webinar this January 14, 2022. Happy holidays and a safe, prosperous, and sustainable New Year to all.